Good evening, everyone. We are back with another Disney review, doing our 100 Years of Wonder retrospective. Number 58 today. I think we've got, did we say we've just got over a month left, I think now? Number 58, Raya and the Last Dragon. This is a film that I had only watched once before today, and it was your first time watching it again, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, we should have done one a year, shouldn't we?
Oh my God, that's depressing. No, we absolutely should.
We would be on Pinocchio, wouldn't we?
Yeah, yeah, we'd be on Pinocchio. Fucking hell. Yeah, Raya and the Last Dragon then. So this came out 2021. I did go and see this at the cinema, I think. I think it was one of those films getting nominated for best best animated feature. I always tended to try and watch all the animated features back then, and this was just one of them. Interestingly enough, around this time, we were in the COVID years. So this film got delayed twice because of that, and was released simultaneously in cinemas and on the Disney Plus platform, which is a really weird business model, I think, isn't it? Releasing it on streaming. It was for Premiere, Premiere Access only, but the fact that you're kind of making people not want to go to the cinema to see it and pay money, and they can just watch it on a subscription fee. So it made 130 mil, which is a small amount, but judging from everything that happened around that time and it being released concurrently on Disney Plus, probably very understandable why it only made 130 mil on a 100 mil budget, apparently. A lot of the voice work was done from the cast's homes, and they just recorded it there. So I think it's probably a miracle that it turned out as good as it did, based on everything. But this is a very nice film. It's got some good themes, I think. It's got some good animation, but yeah, that's where it kind of begins and ends with my review on this. How about you?
And it's got the dragon from Neverending Story in it.
Yeah, it's oh god. Why am I forgetting his Falcor? My god,
I forgot his name, but yeah,
Falcor. Jesus Christ, I almost had a heart attack for forgetting something
they
like
look exactly the same.
Yeah, it's that kind of. I know it's not China necessarily, but it's when you think of like a Chinese dragon without the wings, and it's the furry kind of. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
got a few comments. Fluff dragon. We got Brian who says this was a good movie, and I think it would be a good world for Kingdom Hearts 4. We were actually talking about that before we went live. I disagree. I don't think it would be a good world for Kingdom Hearts 4 because Kingdom Hearts worlds are usually very small, aren't they? Even the free roam ones are usually very small. This is one where you need a Shadow of the Colossus type game where it's completely free roam, and you've got the desert sections, and you've got the ice sections and the sort of like rainforesty parts to it. Yeah, you just need loads of different locations in there, and I don't think that Kingdom Hearts be able to do that. But I do think that Sisu would be a fantastic summon. I do think that
Sisu is very like the genie, like you said before.
Well, same color scheme, yeah, same kind of quirky personality. Definitely not as good as Robin Williams, though, with the voice of Aquafina. We'll talk about that later on. But I could imagine the summon, when she's like dancing on like the raindrops towards the end of the film, and it's all very pretty. Yeah. I can imagine a summon similar to that, maybe.
Yeah, she would work good as a summon. It would work. I like the characters in it. I like Raya. I liked her as a character, and I liked her sword.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. I mean, it's probably really massively impractical as a sword, but it is really cool. It's a sword that also doubles up as a grappling hook.
Yeah, that's what you want from sci-fi, but fantasy kind of. That's what you want from that kind of stuff. You want impractical shit that we don't. Shit that doesn't work in real life. That's why we watch movies, to escape real life and go, that doesn't work. It's like, yeah, exactly. That's why I like being here.
I think Carl's more in my camp with this one. He says, "Evening, guys. Really don't like this film. Just don't like Aquafina voice." I am totally with you on that. And I think that the character of Sisu would be much more endearing had Sisu have had just any voice that isn't Aquafina.
Godfrey.
Yes, I agree.
That would have been, or Morgan Freeman.
Yes. You've converted one of the masses, Dale. Look at this. Carl says, after Dale's advice on Kingdom Hearts last week, I now have all the games from 1 to 3 for the Xbox. Congratulations.
That's a very good idea. Now all you got to do is play them in order.
Yeah.
Set aside 2,000 hours, which is what I've done in my last 2,000 hours of my life. I've set aside 2,000. Something like that.
What did that work out to? You did work it out, didn't you?
I think it's about 2 months worth of Kingdom Hearts that I've played.
Nice.
of my life, something like that. So what you got to do: set aside about 2,000-ish hours, just playing through over and over and over again, and then you'll love life.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'll come out the 2,000 hours and hate life.
I still need to play all of those games. I keep saying it, but I really do.
And realize that it's 2024 and you're not 12 anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a sad world.
And we
I wasn't
never
12
will
when
be
the first
again.
one came out. How old was I? 8, 7.
It's 2000, 2002, wasn't it?
8. Yeah.
Is the mathing on that one? Okay.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. I was 27
Facebook,
for like 4 years once. So
Facebook likes to remind you every year of, oh, Kingdom Hearts is this many years old this year, and I'm like, I really didn't want to know that. Thank you.
That was a good time.
Right then, Raya and the Last Dragon. Where do we start with this? Well, I guess we can start with when the project sort of began, early production, and the idea of it sort of stemmed around October of 2018, and it was officially announced in the August of 2019. The film did actually sort of rotate out its directors quite a bit, and even the voice actress of Raya as well, when the whole personality changed of the character. So the credited directors on this are Don Hall and Carlos Lopez Estrada, which is a great name. But originally the directors were going to be Paul Briggs and Dean Wellins. Both of them were demoted to co-directors, and then Wellins was demoted even further, I think, to story writer, I think, or a contributing writer. Sorry, I think that's his only credit on the film. So they rotated people out quite a bit. And even Raya, apparently the voice actress who was originally going to play the character was Cassie Steele. I did check to see if I've seen her in anything. She's a Canadian actress and singer. The original idea for Raya was that she was going to be a much more stoic character. I guess more silent protagonist, or maybe a bit gruffer, a bit rougher around the edges, maybe. Eventually, as things, as the story went in different directions and the character changed, they decided to take the stoic loner motif and eventually worked in a bit more levity and swagger to the character. I think they were going more for like a Star-Lord from Guardians of the Galaxy kind of feel on the character. And then we had, oh God, what's her name? Is it Kelly Marie Tran, sorry. The one who played Rose Tico in Star Wars The Last Jedi. That's how we're going to win, not by fighting what we hate.
Do you know what? I
what we
didn't
love.
actually know that connection until now, and my opinion this movie's dropped. And it's made me very sad.
I think she's a really good voice for the character. In all honesty, I think you get a lot of charm with the character, and I think the voice.
You do. Suits. She is good for the character, but why'd they put her in Last Jedi?
I don't blame her. I just blame Rian Johnson.
But why did they make The Last Jedi?
I blame Rian Johnson. I blame oh God, what's her name? Why have I forgotten her name? I'm having a senior moment today. Ridley? No, Kathleen Kennedy. There we go. I blame her.
Well, why did they make The Last Jedi? That's the question.
That's a great question. Well, why did they make The Force Awakens?
Well, there you go. See, this is what makes me sad.
It was fucked from the start.
But in this movie, she was good. I liked the character of Raya. I thought Raya was a great character, and I really liked her sword as well, like I said.
So I think this is a little bit underhanded how Disney handled this. I know, a big surprise. Disney being underhanded. What? Really? A massive billion-dollar company like that? So Kelly Marie Tran actually did audition for the character in the January of 2020, but she never got a call back, and she lost the role, and they hired someone else. They didn't tell her that they hired someone else. She just didn't hear anything. So she assumed that the role had gone to someone else. Then, after they'd hired this other person to do the character, when it was going to be more of a stoic character, they didn't tell her that they were looking for other people. So essentially, they got both actresses to record all of the lines for the films behind each other's backs without telling them that they were looking for other people. Eventually, Kelly just found out on her own accord that they were looking for someone else, but she still took the gig. But I don't know. It felt like they were kind of keeping their options open, but Disney eventually said that Tran was just a much better fit for the role, which I haven't heard.
Disney does that. It's okay, but if I do it to a girl, it's not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, it's not right.
You keep one on the side. Yeah, you got your side chick. Yeah. And yeah, so that's basically it about the whole behind the scenes. So there was a little bit of shuffling around. I don't know how many drafts the screenplay and the story went through, so it doesn't give me that information. But for me, this film, it's got all the hallmarks there of a good story, and I like a lot of the themes in there. There's a lot of themes of trust, sort of like of war, of setting aside one's differences and unity and everything in the face of this horrible threat that's sweeping the land, which was probably very timely actually when it came out during COVID. But for me, the plot is very similar to a lot of other things that we've seen, and that's not usually a bad thing, but even within modern Disney, it's basically the same plot as Moana, isn't it? It's this pestilences sweeping across the land that's going to doom the world. This warrior princess character has got to travel with like the heart. You have the heart of Tafiti motif in Moana. In this, it's the dragon gem or the heart of the dragons or whatever it is. And if we get this thing to where it needs to be and we put it back together, then Maui, or in the case of this, the dragons are going to come back and save the world. So it's a very similar premise, and that's never usually a bad thing because it's all about the characters that populate the story and really what you do with it to change it up. So we have a change of setting. I actually really like the setting. I think the Southeast Asian culture stuff is really cool. I don't know how much of this stems from their actual mythology, how much of it they've borrowed and how much of it they've changed, but I like that we have all the different locations on the map, keeps things quite varied. I enjoy that. But to me, the thing that just lets it down is you have this fairly trite story that we've seen a million times, but it's just the characters that populate it I don't find particularly interesting.
It suffers a lot with character bloat, I think. Like when it comes with like when they're on the ship and there's a lot, it feels like there's just a lot of NPCs that are just kind of doing their thing. And that's why you don't get... I'm not saying the chemistry between Sisu and Raya was bad, but the reason you don't get a lot between... When they're together on their own, cool, but you don't get a lot of that because there's a lot of times where there's other people involved where you think, if we didn't go down that route, if we went... But then it would just become Moana. You know, if it went down that route, the reason the chemistry was so good between Mawam... We're going to call him Mawam now. Mawam and Moana was so good is because... Like it was between those two. That was the movie. Whereas this, there was a lot of NPCs going on. There was a lot of stuff, and it wasn't a bad thing. But I think there was a lot of bloat, and that's that's why there wasn't as much of that great chemistry going on between the two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a great point. I didn't even think of that, but you're right. You have in Moana, you really let that dialogue between the characters and let them develop naturally. Because yeah, they're the only ones on screen. True, you have Hey the rooster, but I mean, he doesn't really exactly say much, does he? And you do hop to a bunch of different locations, and they confront a lot of different things, but it's still inherently just them. That's a great point. Yeah, this one, and it's very fantasy-like in this, and that's why I'm trying to think why this doesn't work. And I think it's inherently that I just don't find the characters inherently well written or particularly well developed, or the characters themselves don't have any sort of traits that make them particularly memorable to me, because it is very fantasy-like or JRPG. You, as the quest progresses, you acquire more party members, right? You build your fellowship as you go through. But yeah, so like the first one is the kid who's like a chef, and I'm like, okay, whatever. Like he's not particularly memorable to me. Then you have the baby with the monkeys, and then you have the sort of the tanky one, I guess, towards the end. But some of these are sort of introduced very late on in the game because we do pick them up as we go along our journey. So I think it has a second act problem. I really like the premise of this. I do, that you have this this province. It's called Heart, isn't it? And Raya's father wants to unite all the splintered kingdoms and sort of offer them a truce. He offers them food using ingredients from all the different provinces, but inherently they're greedy over a gem. And I mean, comparing that to something else, it's very much like The Hobbit, for example, how there's this gem, there's the wealth, there's the gold that all these provinces believe gives power to them, and they want to, take their fair share of this because, they're jealous, they're covetous and whatnot. It's a good story, and I think like the first act is really strong. Then we have our 6-year time jump, and Raya feels very much like a different character now. And I feel like she does lose a lot of that personality that we see inherently at the very beginning. And then, you kind of just hop from province to province. And whilst it does keep it varied visually on screen, comparing back to when we did Wreck-It Ralph, I think one of my problems with that is that we spend so long in Sugar Rush. It's this video game world. You want to see all of these different things and them to hop between game to game. And you do get a lot of jumping around with this. You have Heart, and all of these different locations look distinctly different. They have their own appearance and sort of culture and dress and everything. That's really cool. But I don't feel like we spend enough time in each of these places to really get a sense of them,
Yeah, it's but then again, it feels quite, I mean, to be fair, it's one of the longer ones, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Well, 107 minutes. So, yeah, I mean, it's almost pushing 2 hours, this one.
Yeah, it's one of the longer ones, but I think because it has a lot of places. Again, this is where I think the bloat comes into it. It's trying to do a lot of things in a small time frame.
Yeah.
And it could have been like if it was I think if this was a series, it could have been a really good series. I think it could have done really, really well. I think, even the character of whose name I did know until you kept giving me random names because you forgot her name.
Namari is the
there
villain.
You go.
In this,
yeah, Namari.
Yeah.
Again, could have been a better, more compelling villain if she had more screen time. I think, if when I say even more screen time, I just mean more even background screen time. More, she existed longer.
Mm-hmm.
But the story itself was compact into this 2-hour window, which worked, but I think would have been better if it had been like an actual like a mini series or something.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm surprised they haven't done anything with this one. Maybe because it was, it didn't make a whole lot really at the box office, but that was
Disney
to be expected.
Is scared. Because Disney is scared. This is the thing. It didn't make money for reasons of like there was a pandemic going on and stuff, and that's cool and whatever. Like, but the thing is, Disney is scared because they're like, I didn't make money. It's like they don't look at it and go, yeah, but there's a pandemic. I mean, they probably looked at it and say that's a possibility, but we would rather make a sequel to something that we know is going to pull in money rather than make a TV show to something which might, people might like, but it might not pull in our money. They only go where it's safe. Disney seems to be doing that recently. Like, what's the next original Disney classic that's not a sequel?
That they haven't confirmed one yet.
There you go. Exactly.
so
Disney are only playing it safe at the moment, and it just shows they don't feel like $1 billion company. They don't, because if you're $1 billion company, you'd be like, right, we can take a risk, but they're not. They're not taking a single risk. I feel like they haven't, and that's because they used up all their fucking risks by going, let's make this character gay. Let's do this. Really amazing.
Well, recently they're doing like, is it an Inside Out TV series or it's something? It's a
Riley's gay.
No. So it's a new Disney Plus series. I can't remember if it ties in with Inside Out, but apparently they've removed a transgender character, and Disney issued a statement saying something like, "We felt like parents should have that conversation themselves with their children rather than us putting this in our product." So maybe the winds of change are happening at Disney. Maybe they finally realize. I don't know, but yeah,
Disney are just scared. Like, Disney do not have this. The thing is, Disney are literally that neighbor that you have that doesn't have a fucking opinion, and will just literally go on whatever the news is telling them to.
Yeah,
and it's really annoying. And in a way, I get it because they're supposed to be this big company, whatever. But all they're doing now is just pussyfooting around life. And they're not making a decision, and that's why they're literally just keep getting pushed to the side, and that's why they're having to sit on these sequels, because people are going, oh, let's watch Frozen 3, oh, let's do this, but they come out with a new Disney classic. No one's going to give a shit, and they're not going to give a shit in 2-3 years time because they haven't put out a Disney classic in ages. They haven't put out a good one in ages. No one's going to give a shit, and they've become that company, which is really annoying. So they're doing that, and it's like, oh, maybe the winds are changing. It's like, but they're probably not, because then as soon as something else, as soon as someone turns around and goes, oh, we're going to complain about this, and then some other big thing happens, let's say a trans person gets killed instead of a black person, they go, trans lives matter, all that kind of stuff. Disney will then jump on the bandwagon and go, oh, we need a main character trans person. All they're doing is they just do not have an opinion. They're not a company you can respect anymore.
Yeah. And then they never put their money where their mouth is, do they? Because then you have things, I reference this all the time, but things like the Black Panther poster, when it came out, Marvel, Chadwick Boseman, they had his face concealed for sales, and like Asian markets like China and stuff, they blurred him out on the poster. John Boyega on the Star Wars poster was removed or made very, very small on the poster from what he actually is in the Western poster. Things like the same-sex kiss, which is like a fraction of a second at the end of episode 9, where you can easily edit a scene out like that, which of course they did for distribution to China and whatnot. So they're just so phony. They just go where the money is, and as you say, that they follow trends, as everyone does in Hollywood at the moment. You know, we see it all the time. I wanted to
The
ask
only
you a
thing
question.
is,
Oh, sorry.
Disney never used to be like that. That's the annoying thing.
I know. They just, back then they just thought about entertainment. What makes an entertaining movie for the whole family? And now, yeah, they don't think about that. I know it's a business. I know it's always been a business. But when we've done this retrospective, when we look back at those years, that passion project of getting Snow White made, and how the company struggled through everything, made it through the wartime, and then came out swinging with Cinderella and whatnot. Yeah, it does make you harken back for a simpler time, doesn't it? Sometimes a little bit. But I wanted to ask you a question about this film, because I do think, from what I've heard from people genuinely seem to enjoy this movie for what it is, but it is a very forgettable one. Now, I'm not saying every single Disney film needs songs in there. Zootopia made over $1 billion. We're getting a sequel to Zootopia next year. We did our review on that. We both really enjoy that movie, and we said that we felt that songs would be out of place in this, and not every Disney film needs them. With this one having the princess framework, the exotic locations, and all these different provinces and stuff, do you think that this film was lacking songs? Do you think that would have maybe given it that push that it maybe needed?
No, I don't think it was lacking songs. I think it worked how it did. I don't think it was missing any songs. I think if it had songs, it would have become a Mulan Part 2. I think it would have felt very like that. It would have had that, the comedy dragon in it. It would have had everything that you would just expect from Mulan. I don't think, I think it worked well without songs.
Mm-hmm. And after seeing clips of the live-action Little Mermaid, the last thing I want to hear is Awkwafina trying to sing, like she does as the character of Scuttle in that movie. Was it called Scuttlebutton? And she starts rapping, or oh my god, ugh!
I didn't know she was in that. To be fair, though.
Yeah.
I avoid that movie.
So let's look at our characters in this a little bit more then. So let's talk Raya then, because you mentioned that you really like the character. Yeah, are you more referring to the character overall? Do you sort of like the prologue before we get the 6-year time jump?
This is the thing. I do like the prologue is the biggest bit. That was the bit that I was really captivated. I thought this is great. I thought it's going to be a really good movie, and it does continue as a great movie. But the prologue was the best bit. I think that's where it solidified for me. This is very like a video game. She moves around like a video game character. She has the little what's the creature's name called?
Tuk Tuk.
Yeah.
I love Tuk Tuk in this film.
Yeah, and she moves him along, and it feels like that kind of, you can't get into a small space, so now use your little gadget, and it feels very like that, and it's quite. And I really like the prologue, and I think that was the peak for the movie. I'm not saying it dropped, because that would be unfair to say, but I think that was the peak and that was the best bit. But overall, as Raya, I really liked her. I liked her when she was grown up. I was skeptical at first, thinking, is this going to be where she grows up and she's nothing like she was as a kid? But I really liked her. I liked her as she was an adult. I liked the way she dressed. I liked her style. I liked her sword. Yeah, I thought she was great.
It's very Tomb Raider-esque at the beginning, wasn't it? Where she's we later find that it's a test set by her father to see if she's worthy to be a guardian of the dragons, or whatever they called. Yeah, I really like the premise of this. I like the idea of unity and bringing all the different clans, all the different provinces to this place for sort of like a truce and armistice, and then plans going awry, which sets going awry. Oh, that was terrible. That was a dad joke. Everything's great. Then we get that 6 years time jump, and you have to be really careful with a time jump like that sometimes within a film. And I do think a little bit of the character is lost, but as I say, that whole jumping from place to place, whilst it's nice to get different varied locations, similar to Zootopia, I suppose, how you have Tundra Town and you have Little Rodentia and you have all these different places, those places seem to be integrated better into the screenplay for Zootopia and felt justified with the police procedural kind of thing. Whereas this one, all the locations are wonderful. Every single one we go to, I really like the sort of Wild Westy desert tundra that we see at the beginning. And then we jump, and then we go to, forgive me, I'll forget the place names, where it's like this big sprawling market town and, lights everywhere and big palaces and crowds everywhere. It's where the baby and the monkeys are, that scene. Yeah. And you're like, okay, we're going to spend a little bit of time here for a bit. And then, oh no, now we're moving off somewhere else. So
But that's the thing. That's the danger
Yeah.
you have with something squashed into a 2 hour frame. You visit all these things, and that's where the bloat comes in, because you fill it with so many things. You're like, oh, this is cool, and then you don't get to spend enough time with that thing that you think is great. So I think, yeah, this is why I think it would have worked so much better as a series.
I also think that the overall message of this film and the themes of trust and unity are absolutely huge by the time you get to the end of the film. But I do think that the message isn't sort of clearly put across within the film, because I think there's a few moments in particular where there's lots of gray areas there, and maybe that's what they're trying to say, but I also think it makes it very difficult for especially like a younger audience to really pick up on what the message is. For example, you have the bit where they go to again, it's not Fang, is it? No, not Fang. Wherever the where the pick up the baby with the monkeys, whatever that town is, where Sisu's like, oh, I'm going to put it on credit when she's disguised as a human. I hated that scene, by the way. She's like, I'm going to put it on credit. But there's the leader of the town, right? The de facto leader is this unassuming sort of old woman who tries to sacrifice Sisu and, you know, give me the dragon gem, otherwise these things are going to kill you outside. And Raya kind of chastises Sisu in this moment, saying, look, I told you not to talk to anyone. I told you to keep yourself to yourself. Don't trust anyone here. This is not a trustworthy place. Which Raya points out and exemplifies perfectly in that scene, because this leader of the clan was horrible. She was about to kill Sisu if she didn't turn over the dragon gem, and Tuk and Raya showed up to save the day. And then later on in the movie, you have the villain. I couldn't stand the villain in this, Namari. I think the ingredients were there for an interesting character. I don't think we spend enough time with her relationship with her mom or her kingdom or her province or whatever, which is a shame. And I find her just a bit one note, but also later on, not accountable at all. There's the bit where she's got the crossbow at Sisu, and you see the finger like poised on the trigger. And Raya's like, I'm going to have to take her down. I'm going to have to put this woman down. And Sisu's like, no, I've got this. And they sort of have a heart-to-heart moment. But you still see her finger on the trigger. And you can see that she's conflicted a little bit, but she's about to pull that trigger. And Raya makes a call. That's not a call that anyone wants to be in. But she took the chance. She's like, right, now she's going to kill Sisu here. She tries to like knock the crossbow out of her hand, but she pulls the trigger and ends up killing Sisu. That is, in my opinion, that's Namari's fault. Namari was the one holding the crossbow. It was her finger on the trigger. She wasn't putting the weapon down. And I don't want to get too morbid and compare this to sort of like a police situation. But if they've got a gun on you, like they're like, put the weapon down, and they ain't putting it down, and they're showing intent to use it, and they're about to pull the trigger, I'm sorry, but you got to make a call. I don't blame Raya for making that decision at all. And then later on in the film, Namari says to Raya, you're just as much to blame for Sisu's death as I am. We're both responsible for this because you didn't trust me enough. You didn't trust Sisu enough that Sisu had that situation under control, and you didn't trust me that I, wasn't going to pull the trigger. How the fuck was Raya meant to know that? Remember the last time she tried to trust this person and welcomed her into her home? Yeah. And she led a whole army in behind her back to try and steal the dragon gem? Fuck Namari. So that's where I'm saying it's a nice message of trust and unity, and we all need to band together as one people to defeat the darkness, whether that's war or a disease or whatever it happens to be. It's a wonderful sentiment, but I do think the message gets a little bit grey in some areas and is a little bit ham-fisted.
No, I agree. You said, what was it? We don't see Namari enough.
Yeah, not really. Like, you get her as the kid where she deceives Raya.
All the ingredients are there for the compelling villain, but...
Oh, here we go.
What?
I sense a Van Halen reference.
I was just saying, when Gary Schroeder was in Van Halen, all the ingredients were there, but you didn't see him enough. He was on one album, so he didn't really get the chance that everyone else got, did he? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah.
Carl's left a great comment here. He says, you'd think Disney gets sick of the backlash, and to quote Norman Osborn, they'd go back to the formula. Yeah, I really don't know what Disney are playing at. Maybe this, where they're changing things up with... I swear it's an Inside Out TV show. I think it is. Maybe that is a sense of things might be changing behind the scenes. We don't know. But
what happens when you get cancelled?
You start your own YouTube channel up.
Like, yeah, nothing happened. Like, so I don't know why Disney are so scared of this whole like getting some sort of backlash. I'm like, well, what? It just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, how? What? I don't get it. Look what happened to what was it? Bud Light, Coors Light.
Yeah, it was Bud Light, wasn't it? I think a lot of companies, Jaguar, I think now as well. It's just it's insane. But I think you
Mm.
said it best, that Disney was more inclusive and diverse when it wasn't trying to be, and I totally agree with that. You know, films like this, I see it. I don't think like, oh God, Raya and the Last Dragon. We've got another warrior princess
Yeah, they're
character, and
not.
oh, it's
The
set in
thing is,
Southeast Asia.
when they're not trying to do it, it works. Like this worked as a movie. I thought it was a good movie. It was entertaining. I think yeah, like I say, I think it would have worked better as a series, but I think it was an entertaining movie. But when I mean, Strange World will be the funny one, won't it? The one that they try really hard to push.
I really hope that we come out of that and go, you know what? Actually, that wasn't half bad, because we've heard all these things about it, these horror stories about it, and we've been putting it down all this time. Maybe unfairly because we haven't seen it, you know, but we will give it a fair shake when we get to it in a couple of weeks' time. But
I
yeah,
mean,
we'll see.
I don't know. I was going to play the new Dragon Age game, and then this character went, "I'm non-binary," so I was like, "Ah, good thing I didn't buy that."
I've seen clips from that. I thought it was a piss take. I thought it was like a parody AI generated voices. I'm like, oh my God, someone actually wrote this dialogue.
Yeah, I've heard.
Dragon Age used to be fucking awesome, man. Like those
I've
earlier games.
I've heard bad things.
Yeah. What I mean, you kind of said this before we went live. You said that you didn't think it bared mentioning, but I feel like we have to, although we're a bit of a broken record with it. The animation in this is gorgeous. Really
Yeah,
good stuff. Like the things they do with water, and water's a key focus in this film, sort of like in a ritualistic standpoint and a spiritual standpoint, and sort of like a sense of transcendence and whatnot, and even just in terms of the locations and the environment itself. It's wonderfully done, like the different locations and the terrain and whatnot. Some of the most picturesque things here. So I went with this background, which is that sort of meadow of the stone dragons. That's almost like this sacred spot that people pass through. Really reminded me of something of like Shadow of the Colossus, as I mentioned earlier. This ancient kingdom, these ancient legends that are now turned to stone and a place sort of falling into disarray. You compared it to Spyro the Dragon, which is great because yeah, all these dragons have turned to stone, all
yeah,
the brothers and sisters, and you've got to release them all. But one of my favorite bits of animation, and this kind of ties in with the music as well. James Newton Howard did the soundtrack. I think it's a great soundtrack. It sort of brings in those cultural elements with the instruments pertaining to Southeast Asian culture. But the main melody, I can't remember what the actual song's called itself, but where they're almost doing the rain dance, not the rain, not the rain dance like the Native Americans, but how they're sort of flying in the sky but jumping from like raindrop to raindrop and everything. It's gorgeous. It's almost like you're watching like a ballet, like a Cirque du Soleil kind of thing. And I think the imagery coupled with the music is just beautiful in that scene. That's where the Disney chills were kicking in. I got them from this movie, so it did something right.
yeah.
It's
This
just
movie did a lot. Right. I mean, like I said, the animation is. I think they just keep getting better with every movie now. I don't think we've seen really a drop for a while. Chicken Little was the last time we saw a drop. It was random.
we're
It
a
felt
long
very
way from
random.
Chicken Little, aren't we, at this point? Yeah.
Yeah, it felt very random that we saw a drop though, because like you said before, there was. It's like it's not like it had never been done before.
That was
So
2004, wasn't it, Chicken Little? Around
feels
that
like
point.
1982.
Let me just have a quick look. Chicken Little was 2005. Shrek was on over Christmas, right? And I sort of like peered in to sort of see it. That animation still looks great. I know it's been a long time since that movie, and yeah, it probably did get more refined by the time you get to Shrek 4 objectively, but it still looks great. I'm like, this was what, 3 years, 4 years before Chicken Little?
Yep. And that's the thing. So, but now it seems like they're just going up and up and up. So I do think the animation is. It feels almost not worth mentioning because, like you said, we do it all the time. Like, but they do get better and better. I do wonder where we're going to go with because the next two don't look as amazing off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
But I've not seen the next two, so I don't know.
Yeah. I have seen the next one. I will get to that in a second. I was going to ask you, what did you think? What was your favorite province in this film out of all the different places?
I quite liked what was it? What was it called again? You know, the one with the credit.
The one with the
You know where
credit?
she where Sisu collecting all the
Oh,
stuff.
yeah. I'm trying to find it. It's Talon, is
The
it?
reason I like that,
Yeah, Talon. That's it.
yeah, it reminded me very of. Do you ever watch Blue Eyed Samurai?
No, I've heard of it though.
I've only watched a couple of episodes. I need to go back and watch it, but like, it reminded me very of. It was that world build. It remember like it was quite inhabited. You know, it was
Mhm.
quite. There was a lot going on, and I liked that. It was quite East Asian. There was a lot of, and isn't that also the same place they have their first fight? Is that the same province? Where,
What, the
where
prologue?
no. After that, where Raya fights thingy.
Well, they start so after the prologue, so they're in Heart, aren't they?
Yeah,
In the first bit. So as I mentioned to you, Raya is literally a princess of
yeah,
Heart, which is great from
yeah.
Kingdom Hearts.
It's true.
So let's add her to this. Then we start in Tale, which is the deserty, westerny kind of place. Then you have Talon, which is where they pick up the baby con artist. Then
Yeah, and
they
doesn't it end with like a little fight between them?
sort of like a mini fight, I suppose. Yeah, well, it's a
Yeah,
chase. It's a chase more than anything, isn't it? Throughout the
yeah,
town.
and it's like, and I think that's quite, there's a lot going on, and I like that, and I think there's a lot of characters. I think the world building's great on it. That's why that's my favorite one.
Hmm. Yeah, then you have Spine, which is the sort of frozen tundra kind of place, and then you have Fang, which is I guess it's kind of like Wakanda. I guess they worship these big cats, and
Yeah,
again, we don't really get much about them, do we? That's the shame. But I think visually they're really cool. I'm kind of repeating myself now, anyway. So, sort of like final thoughts on this. I mean, we've talked about the animation. I was looking to see if they had any advancements in the technology. I know that they had a lot of crowd simulations, and they really expanded how many people they could have on screen at once, which surprises me because comparing this to something like Zootopia, it looks like you've got way more characters in Zootopia compared to this.
depends what they mean by characters though,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
they could have little mini characters and not really see them as so. It just depends, isn't it, what they mean?
Hmm. But everything else just looks like everything that was already pre-existing just kind of got a bit of a boost. But I don't think there was anything massively, revolutionary with this movie that was invented specifically for it. I don't think.
Hmm.
Carl says, before you go, just wanted to thank you both for all the content and the time you give to this. Never underestimate how these videos help people who live by themselves. Oh, man. Have a great 2025. I really appreciate that, man. Thank you. And oh my God, yeah, it's New Year's Eve
Oh
tomorrow.
shit! Yeah,
Tomorrow, yeah, no.
this is the last one ever of this year.
It is. It is.
Does that mean we? Oh no, we start the year with Encanto, so it's not Strange World. That's okay.
Number 59, Encanto. A film I've seen once. Don't really remember much about it.
I've not seen it.
I think I was on a date when I went to see this movie. So yeah, it was one of those dates where you're not really focusing on the movie, if you get what I'm saying. So
I've not seen the movie, so
yeah.
I don't know.
We'll give it a whirl. A lot of people seem to like this one. I think definitely out of the last few that have come out, this seems to be the more popular one, I think.
I thought you were going to say it's one of those dates where you're so glad it's a movie and just like, oh, thank God I can watch a movie.
Well, maybe a little bit of that too was involved as well. So I guess Encanto is going to be kicking off January. And then from then, I think we've got like a month or so after that. So we'll probably be wrapped up by the time we get to February. We've got some plans for June, another big retrospective that we got planned around that month. So we'll find stuff to talk about in between. There's the Superman trailer that we still haven't talked about. There's the Batman Part 2 getting delayed to 2027, which makes me feel very upset. But no, Carl, man, I really, really appreciate your comment, number one, but also thank you for being here. You're one of the, I was just call you one of the old timers then. Makes you sound really old. But, you've been here, even on my previous channel and stuff, you've been here through it all, man. So thank you for your viewership and for tuning in and continuing the conversation with us. We've got King SeaWorld Man who says, Encanto. Yep, that will be the next one.
That is the movie.
So yeah, in case we don't, well, yeah, actually, I'll be live on Wednesday. So I'll be live on New Year's Day with JX Editor. We'll be talking about the new episode of Star Wars Skeleton Crew. Sorry, Disney Star Wars Skeleton Crew. I am going to differentiate that. So yeah, I'll be live on New Year's Day. But in the meantime, have a very fun and have a very safe New Year's celebration if you're going out for it. I heard the weather's going to be pretty awful in the UK if you're celebrating it here. But yeah, we just want to say a big thank you to everyone that stayed with us. Hit the subscribe button throughout all of 2024. And it really means a lot to us. And we'll keep it going. There's the thumbs up. I can't do it on my camera for some reason. I don't know what that's about. But yeah, you guys have been great.
Works
and we'll
every
catch
now
you.
and then.
It does.
There we go.
Hey, there we go. Cool. Yeah, we'll catch you in 2025. We ain't going anywhere. Take care, everyone.